come on up. And what we've got some of the same things you provided, but anything else is appreciated. So we'll let you come up to the podium and then go ahead and make your presentation. And then after your presentation, the board will ask any questions, areas that we might need further information on. And then after that's over, at the end of the day today, we do deliberations on each individual case.
Okay.
And you'll be notified by mail within 2 to 3 weeks of the other decision. So
Okay.
I'll turn it over to you.
I didn't do standard comps. I went through and I looked at, actually, the main thing I'm going on is the building assessments for the actual houses. And if you look at my property at 470 Foxfield Lane, my house was assessed at almost $412,000. It's a spec home. There's absolutely nothing custom to it. It's got vinyl floors, contractor-grade carpets, contractor-grade everything, bathrooms and everything. And if you go through and you look at Cowshed Road, now that your assessment on that thing is messy because that's actually 2 full living spaces in that house. The second floor is fully living space. You have the bathroom, the bedrooms, the kitchen, the laundry room, granite counters, gas logs, all that. So it's actually twice the size of the house that you have listed. But if you look at the building assessment, it's $141,000 approximately. Starview Place, I mean, he's got a $529,000 total assessment, and his building, which is again custom, is 35% larger than mine, and that's $316,000 assessed at. If you go to Boathouse Cove, that's a little smaller home, but it's custom again with hardwood floors throughout, fireplace, hardwood cabinets, deep water dock, and that building is assessed at $260 approximately. Coratoman Circle, 35% larger than my home. Again, a custom-built home. All these are custom homes except for mine. All of them have custom appointments inside and everything. Again, 35% larger, but it's only, the building assessment with a custom home is only 10% larger than mine, higher than mine. And then Clark Point Drive, 20% larger, and the building, again, a custom, vaulted ceilings, 9-foot ceilings, et cetera, and it's actually assessed at less than mine. All these places have deep water. I can show you pictures on my phone. Right now, my water is mud. My dock is in the mud. You know, I couldn't do anything with it. I couldn't bring a sunfish in it right now at this low tide. So that's essentially my presentation. I didn't look at comps because I didn't think they really, you're basing the property assessment, the tire property assessments, the biggest factor in that is the houses themselves in all these cases. Now my house is assessed at a higher level than these other ones, and I have half the house. I have a smaller house. It's a spec house. You want to come and look at it. The carpet's no better than this. Vinyl sheet flooring. I don't even have vinyl tiles. Bathrooms are just, you know, my cabinets are a contractor grade cabinet. You know, so I'm comparing it to all these custom homes. The guy on Starview, he's actually a neighbor of mine. You know, just, you know, he's on the same creek. So that's essentially my presentation.
So you're not here disputing the land value, it's just the building value? Or the
Correct.
improvement value.
So the value in total, yes.
Gotcha. Have you had a chance to look at the current real estate tax card to ensure the information on there is correct as far as square footage?
On my house,
Yes,
yes,
sir.
it's all correct.
It's all correct, okay. So
Yes.
literally, it's just a dispute on the value of the improvements, the building itself versus other comps.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right. Let's see.
And it's correct, 2013 is the year
It was built, correct.
built. I know that, when we start delving into it a little bit more, I'm not sure what year the other houses were.
Most of them are older. The only one that was newer is, fine. That is a smaller house. Yeah, that is at Boathouse Cove. He was 2015, that
okay.
one. But, when you take that into account, yes, it's a newer home, but if you look at the ceilings, it wasn't built by a high-end contractor that did high-end work. You go into my living room and look at the ceiling, you can see every tape and spackle joint in there, every one of them. It's just
Who built your house?
Mitchell Homes.
Okay.
So, these other homes are all custom. Well, a custom contractor does better work than a contractor like Mitchell, but I couldn't afford a custom contractor, so, but you look at the ones that actually are being sold, you go look at those pictures of those homes, they blow my home's doors off. My house isn't worth what those houses are worth. Not even close.
And then you've got a copy of the tax card, so, right, you've got the building assessment at 411,957, so I assume there's the area there in the tax card that says structural value, this piece here. Just thinking, kind of the,
The structural value?
and the big chunk of that is you got 2,016 square feet, and the assessor is putting 187.84 square foot, so sort of your main finished comes up at 378,685. And then he's giving you $15 a square foot for the basement, and then plumbing, AC, fireplace, flue, and then the porches and decks. Okay, I guess that comes up to the 417,891. So I guess really kind of right for us, the spot where there'd be a place to make a difference would be on how he came up with that number, which would be sort of based on the age and how he rates
What would be the factor in the
how he
depreciation?
rates the property, which I guess would be condition good and class C. So it'd be kind of interesting to look at the other ones. And so your thought is that your house compares more to these that are at a lower value?
Well, I think based on the quality of the home built and the size,
Yeah.
these are significantly larger. Cowshed Road is only 10%, but Starview Road, our place, he's 35% larger. Cortoman Circle, 35% larger, and Clark Point, 20% larger. I mean, these are larger homes with 4 baths and 3 and 4 bathrooms and 4 bedrooms. I'm 3, 2.5. And again, I don't have any hardwood floors. I don't have vaulted ceilings. I don't have special glass or anything like that. I have a spec home. It's, the windows are contractor grade windows. Everything about it is contractor grade. I had to replace some of the floor vinyl, and it was sheet vinyl. It wasn't even tiled, it wasn't, someone comes in to look at that house to buy it, they're going to look at a spec home. They're not looking at a custom house. And then on top of it, they're going to go down and they look at the dock at low water. they're not getting any kind of boat in there except for a kayak or something like that, you know. At high tide, yes, and in the summer, there's a little bit more water. But right now, there's no water in that. There's no water at my dock right now, or an hour ago, hour and a half ago at low tide.
Yesterday, today, last week there was water, not last 2 days.
Last week, there was some water, yes.
Yeah,
But,
but now it's mud.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I have mud a fair amount of the time,
yeah.
you know, so, and I have steep stairs going down to the dock. An older couple's not going to be, they don't want to go on that property. So, I don't know, I mean, all your numbers that you pulled up where they do the assessment and everything, I don't understand that. I don't do this for a living. But I do know what common sense says to me. When you have a larger home that's a custom-built home that has hardwood floors, that has 4 bathrooms instead of 2.5, and 4 bedrooms, et cetera, it's going to be worth more. You know, and most of these are actually listed significantly less than mine.
RJ and Ms. Davis, y'all got any questions?
No, sir, we've pretty much covered what I was.
Jan, Neil, anything further? All right, I appreciate you come before us and bringing this information to our attention. That's why we have these hearings, because a lot of times we're just seeing paper. But
Yeah.
having the owner come up and provide information like this, we wouldn't have known that your house is a modular home and builder-grade material without you presenting it. So that'll be very helpful in our deliberations this afternoon, so.
Okay. Good deal.
All right, have a great
Well,
day.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Yes, sir. So. Might as well go ahead and get ready for the next one then. Keep them moving, right? All right, everybody ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Reese. Mr. Reese, how you doing? Good to see you, buddy. Come on forward. If you don't mind, we'll start 4 minutes early.
That'd be great with me.
And, Mr. Reese, what we're going to do is allow you to make your presentation and share with us any information you have. And then the board would ask questions and fill in blanks if need be. And then at the end of the day, each day, we do our deliberations for each case by case. So we're not holding the taxpayer up here all day. And then the county will notify you by mail within 2 to 3 weeks of the decision. So
Great.
I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Good morning. My name is Steve Reese. I live at 729 Chesapeake Drive in Irvington. I purchased the house in 2003 and have lived there full-time since 2003. And I would like to request a reconsideration of the last reassessment that I received from the county. The assessment was sent November 17th of 2023, and the improvements showed that there was an increase of 106% on my house from the year before. I met with Jason Cower on December 6th, and we went through a series of errors and incorrect assumptions that had been made on my house. He indicated that there would be some reconsideration and got back to me on January 15th. So that was my second letter from the county. And the building, the house reassessment had decreased from 106% to 63% of its previous total. I have not made any improvements to that house since 2006, when I went through a fairly large renovation 3 years after I bought it. The only substantial improvements that I've made have been to my bulkhead and part of my pier, which were damaged during a hurricane 8 years ago. The one thing that I asked Mr. Cowan if he could provide some additional information was on comparables, because I know that that's been a large part of the reassessment, and I had not received any information on the comparables used for my house, which is really critical for today's discussion. My house is relatively small compared to a lot of houses. It's about 2,700 square feet, 2,750 square feet, and it sits on a piece of land that does not allow the house to be expanded. It's a landlocked piece of house. It drops off dramatically, so the house can never be any larger than that. It's clearly the largest house within the smallest house within most of Irvington, and I was trying to understand in more detail what type of comparables could have been used to compare the house, because having looked at this fairly extensively with the records available, there are very, very few, if any, houses comparable to mine, and I'm assuming that that was one of the driving forces in the reassessment. And with that, I'll stop.
Have you had a chance, Mr. Reese, to I guess, review the tax cards? You said you met with Jason Cowan to correct inaccuracies, but do you know if the current tax card, what he corrected is, in fact, what
I'm
you
sorry,
have there now?
in terms of what, sir?
The square footage,
Yeah,
bedrooms, bathrooms, acreage.
Yes, the physical description is correct. He did have the incorrect year as to when the house was built. It actually was constructed in 1960. He had indicated that I had built a garage. The garage was in place before I purchased the house.
All right, hang on one second. So you said 1960? So we've got 1962 is shown here.
Yeah, 1962, yes.
Okay.
His review had indicated there's an enclosed porch on my property, and there is no enclosed porch. There has not been. His review indicated a new boat lift had been installed. I have not installed a new boat lift since I purchased the house. There is no pavement that has been added to my house since I've purchased it. There's been no asphalt work done. There have been no piers or docks extended or added from when I purchased the house. He indicated the incorrect roofing type on the house. It is not a cedar shake. It is a conventional asphalt roofing system. But he did have the correct square footage, approximately taking the outside measurements on the house.
2 bedrooms, 3.5 baths?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Heat pump, 2-car carport, and a frame garage?
Correct.
And then it looks like you've got maybe a guest house?
Yes, there's a small
One bedroom?
guest house, approximately 400 square feet.
Okay, 1 bedroom, 1 bath,
Correct.
and that was built 1971?
Correct.
Okay.
It may have been built in 1970, but it was definitely after the main house was built.
Okay.
So after you met with him, your assessment went from 964,400 down to 845,900, and that's where we're currently looking on that tax card. Total value of 845,900. Is that
The current numbers sent to me were the building at 447 and the land at 399.
okay? Yep.
And then in 2020, 2022, and 2023, the land remained the same, but the house was at 274. So it's really that jump between 274 and 447 that I was interested in understanding in more detail.
I think it's one of the parts that's kind of confusing about the process is that if we don't reassess every year, the last reassessment was 2019.
Right.
Then so the data for that was from 2018. And so that number probably stayed the same 2020, 2021,
Yes,
2022,
it did.
2023. And then that's the challenge for everybody right now is there has been this big jump. How do you apply that to each individual property? Do you know, are there any properties around you that, I think that kind of the two things that they tell us to look at in here is it says in this little handbook that we have, is the appellant challenging the fair market value or the uniformity and equity? So fair market value is, I don't think I could get this for my house because these properties over here didn't sell for that much. And then the uniformity and equity is I'm looking at my neighbor's assessments, and sometimes that data is a little bit hard to come by, and I think my neighbors or similar houses are assessed differently
Right.
than me as a kind of, I think for most people, it's sort of a combination of both
Right.
of those things.
Well, there are 4 houses in the cul-de-sac where I live. I have the oldest house. It was built, as I said, in 1960. The other 3 houses were all built in 10 or 12 years ago. And this is either good news or bad news, but 2 of those houses have sold since I have lived there. And they're larger than my house. They're newer than my house, but they have sold for $1.5 and $1.6 million. And I know that that would certainly trigger some consideration in terms of the increased assessment. The point that I just want to reinforce is that I have the smallest house and the oldest house in that community. And it's difficult to understand, given the subtleties or the not subtleties of mortgage rates and the cost of money, and when people are buying houses, obviously they will pay more when money is cheaper, and they'll pay less when money is more expensive. So when I was talking to Mr. Cowan, without dragging him down into incredible detail, trying to understand what mortgage rates were when the comparables that he used for my house were developed, if they were 2% or if they were 7.1%, which would affect that whole scale of what people were willing to pay at that point. And I know it's a complicated computation, and that's as far as I can probably get with my own limited knowledge on it, but I do know that that interest rate would and has always impacted what the costs are going to be in any community in terms of what people would be willing to pay. I don't know what the 2 houses that did sell in my cul-de-sac, what the interest rates were at that time, but I've tried to understand as best I can how that does affect the assessment and the appraisal value of each house in the community.
In terms of your house, I saw in your letter, no interior work or improvements except for a bathroom remodel in 2006.
Yeah,
Can you give
I
us
made
kind of a rough
one.
description, your
Yeah, I made.
laminate counters.
Right. I just want to clarify that I bought the house in 2003, the end of 2002, 2003. I did a large renovation in 2006.
Okay.
Basically a modernization. Since then, the only thing that I had to do to the house, or I decided to do, was a small bathroom remodeling in 2007. In fact, Mr. Dew wore a different hat back then, but I borrowed the money for the renovation from the bank back
remember.
in 2006.
I remember. Anybody have any more questions for Mr. Reese this time? No? That's good. Mr. Reese, thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Absolutely, yep. And we'll, like I said, this afternoon after the hearings today, we will deliberate on each one of them and
Okay,
let
thanks.
you know by mail.
Thank you. Good to
Thank
see you
you. Have a
again.
good day, buddy. Tell your bride we said hello, too. He married Arabella Denver. Yeah. He hadn't been married that long. Yeah. All right. Excuse me for 2 seconds. I gotta make one quick phone call. Mr. Hoover? If you want to begin early, we're happy to have you early. Couple minutes early. Hope you're doing well today.
I guess so. We'll find out in the next few minutes, huh?
Well, I'll turn the floor
Mike-
over to you, buddy.
Huh?
I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay. The increase in the assessment for my property was 68%, and I thought that was high. So I looked at the properties in my neighborhood. There are 27 properties in my neighborhood other than my own, and the average increase for those 27 was 35%. So my increase was almost twice what my neighbors' properties experienced. To me, that's an anomaly that needs an explanation. I then looked at the property of the directly across from my house. The house on that property is the same size as mine, same style. The acreage is about the same. The difference is that her property is waterfront, and her increase was just under 29%. So I was more than twice what her.
And Mr. Hoover, which property was that?
Hoovler.
Hoovler?
Yeah.
And where are they on this map? Are they right across from you?
Right across from that.
Which-
I think it's 2-5.
This one here?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. 39. 825. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so that's another anomaly that I thought required an explanation. And that led me to look at a comparison of the waterfront and the non-waterfront properties in my neighborhood. And as it turns out, the non-waterfront properties, such as my own, increased 53%, whereas the waterfront properties increased a little over 34%. It seemed to me that that was another anomaly that required an explanation. And there's a couple of more of these anomalies that I won't go into because of time constraints here. But I filed an appeal, and on December 4th, I met with the representative of the company that did the assessment, and I ran down my list of anomalies, and I asked for an explanation as to what accounted for those anomalies. I also asked how he derived the 68% figure for my property. And his response was that he would not entertain an appeal based solely on a percentage increase. So I thought about that for a few seconds, and I said, okay, I understand that, but how do you explain the 68, how did you get to the 68% figure, and how do you explain the anomalies that I pointed out? And he responded that he would not entertain an appeal based on a percentage increase. And that was it. He offered no explanations whatsoever for anything that I was requesting. So the meeting lasted all of maybe 10 minutes, and that was it. And I left there with no more information than I had before. 5 or 6 weeks later, I received a revised assessment, and now the increase was 55%, not 68%. And there are 3 notable things about that revised assessment notice. The first is that there was no explanation for the change. So again, I was in the dark. I had no idea the reasoning behind the change. The second notable thing is that if the 55% figure is correct, that means that the 68% increase was incorrect. So that means that the assessor botched it the first time. He got it wrong. He erred. So if he erred then, is he erring now? I don't know. I have no information. Nobody's provided any information. And the third notable thing about that notice, and this is important to me, and that is that none of the input variables had changed. And by input variables, I mean things like sale prices of comparable properties, any changes that I had made in my property, or any of the other variables that are mentioned in the assessment manual. So you got your input variables, you plug those into your computer, and it spits out an answer. It says that you put this in, the computer processes it, and it says, well, okay, the house is worth X number of dollars. So you should get the same answer each time if your input variables are unchanged, but that didn't happen here. So I wrote a letter to the Commissioner of Revenue, and I asked, and Mr. Dew may remember this from 5 years ago, I don't know, we had a rather somewhat contentious discussion of this. But I requested what I requested then, and that was a written justification for the change in the assessment. And here I am today. I've gotten nothing.
Mr. Hoover, can you walk us through the finishes of your house?
Pardon?
Could you walk us through the finishes of your
The
house?
finishes?
Yes, sir. Floor
do you mean?
coverings, countertops, et cetera?
Formica, wall-to-wall carpeting, linoleum. It's quite ordinary stuff, nothing special, no ceramic tile, no corian or whatever they call it, no marble.
And square footage,
I think it's 2167, something
Okay.
like that.
you're built 2002,
Yes,
3 bedrooms, 3 baths,
yes,
heat pump,
yes,
2-car garage.
yep. And the change in the assessment is due to the house. It's not due to the land, it's not due to any of the so-called improvements, it's just the house.
That's what we've seen the previous to this morning. It hadn't been so much a change in the land value as it has been in the improvement value.
Right,
Yep.
that raises questions in my mind, but I guess that's a different issue, I don't know. And I will have been in the house 22 years next month, and I've done nothing to the house.
No improvements.
Zero.
Is there anything from the assessor, Crystal, between the original numbers that Mr. Hoover received and then the revised one I see in here? Kind of that markup when he did the initial assessment and then the tax card, but nothing else does he do? Is there any document that gets created when he?
Okay, thank you.
Something that, sort of an explanation, or just that,
Okay.
that form that his assessment had changed?
Did you receive anything in the mail after your meeting in December from Mr. Cowan?
No. Well, yeah, I may have received something that told me that what the appeal process was after that.
I mean, there's a couple of little things on the tax card that are kind of subjective, sort of like, there's something
Kind
there.
of subjective. That's one of the disturbing things about this to me is that, you know, you change from 68% to 55%. That suggests to me that there's an awful lot of subjectivity and arbitrariness and also proneness to error that's involved in this process.
And has, Mr. Hoover, that document that the assessor created kind of explaining his process, is that something that could be
He's been given the reassessment.
shared? Okay.
That Mr. Cowan.
Yeah, I've gone through the assessment manual.
But I think that's the main problem, is the assessor, once he changed that value, he didn't say,
Why?
yeah, here it was here, now here it is. but
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
the
explain to you
taxpayer
why."
needs an explanation.
Right.
And nobody's explained anything to me. And the last time, the previous assessment process 5 years ago, I requested this information pursuant to the Virginia Code 58.1-3331 and never got anything. I made multiple requests and never got anything. And so I've done the same thing this time, and I've gotten nothing. I'm looking for a rational, evidence-based.
You were given the reassessment manual that Mr. Cowan provided to us, 155-page manual.
Yes, yeah. And I've gone through that.
That's all I have.
And I've gone through that, and I've scratched my head as to how he came up with the 68% figure or the 55% figure. And how do I know that it's not 45% or 35%? What I'm looking for as a taxpayer is a rational, evidence-based explanation. If you can persuade me on the basis of reason and evidence, then you can persuade me. But so far, nothing's been presented. It just seems to be a, and I look at my neighbors, you know, there's another neighbor up there across from my, diagonal to my property, also waterfront, it's a very similar house, same acreage, 23% increase.
But have you looked at your neighboring properties that are not on the water to see what their rates were?
Yeah, like I said, the non-waterfront properties increased 53%.
Okay,
The waterfront properties increased only a little over 34%.
okay,
So that
right.
raises a question, are the waterfront properties getting a break in this process? I don't know. That's an interesting question. I fooled around with the data, the last 20 pages of the assessment manual contains lots and lots of data of sales in Lancaster County from 2019 through, I think, September of 2023. And I played around with that, and it looks to me, and this is tentative, but it looks to me like the waterfront residential properties are getting a break. Now, if I'm incorrect on that, I welcome correction, but
Anybody else have any more questions, for Mr. Hoover? Okay, Mr. Hoover, I appreciate it.
okay.
And you will be getting something in the
Oh, I'm
mail
sure I
from the
will.
county the next 2 to 3 weeks with our decision.
Right, and one issue that I think might be involved in this is that the board might think now, well, gee, my property is worth 68% more than it was 5 years ago. And what they did 5 years ago was to erroneously assess it. But I have a letter from the board that said that in the previous assessment that they had assessed it correctly 5 years ago. So they can't come back and say, well, they did it wrong before. It should, instead of $200,000, it should have been assessed at $300,000 is what I'm saying.
Note taken. Thank you. Mr. Hoover. All right, everybody ready for the next one? Miss Patrick? Yes. Come on up, or come on down, if the price is right. Thank you all for coming today.
Thanks for
And
this.
what we're gonna do is just turn it over to you all and let you all tell us what you want us to hear. And then the board, if we have any questions, of course, we'll engage with you guys. And then at the end of each day, we do our deliberations for each individual case. So we're not keeping you all here all day long. But we've got the assessor's notes, we've got the tax cards, and one thing we want to make sure is everything's accurate too. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. I will be brief. This concerns a comparison to the adjacent property owned by Stephen Webster. I believe you have the lot number I provided to you. Is it? Oh, okay, perfect.
That's yours right there?
Okay. Now,
Okay.
just a couple of points. The total on ours is $755,100. The total on Steve's is $672,500. And yet, they have a much bigger lot in the sense that ours is .49 and there is .710. Also, our square footage is only 117 square feet larger.
Ms. Patrick, could you help us identify which one you're talking about?
If you look at our lot, which is outlined, the one to the left, yes, you're pointing at.
Right.
12C.
So you're comparing it to this one right here?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
26, 12C.
Yeah, so again, the totals are, it doesn't seem to make sense, the numbers that are involved, where our lot is considerably smaller and where the square footage is very, very close. And so we wanted to point that out.
So, with theirs next door, with the square footage difference, do you all, is it roughly 2,400 square foot of finished house for y'all's house?
Did you say finished?
2,400?
Yeah, no, ours is 2850 square feet, and theirs is.
Now, with the 2,850, you're probably including the finished part of the basement?
It would, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, we don't have a finished
Well,
part.
it's not finished, it's
So-
got a linoleum floor and a suspended
Drop ceiling?
drop ceiling.
Is it heated and cooled?
No, I mean, there's no venting, there's no water, there's no bathroom facilities, just an open space.
And I
We
have,
use it for storage, and we've got we put a bunk bed down there just for grandkids when we get some overflow, but there are no facilities.
yeah, it's not finished, and the adjacent property is 2,733 square feet. Ours is 2,850, with a difference of ours being only 117 square foot difference. So you can see there's a big disparity in the concluding numbers.
Well, if you don't mind, let's go through the details of your home, because, for
Sure.
instance, the tax card is showing a finished part of basement at 807 square foot. So to us, finished basement means walled, carpeted, heated and cooled, living, more or less living space, where you're saying it's just a storage area with linoleum floor, no heated and cooled,
There's no carpet, no heating, cooling.
just storage room.
Yeah,
All right, how about 3 bedrooms?
that's right.
Correct? 2.5 baths?
Yes.
So you've got hardwood, carpet, vinyl, and tile for floor coverings?
Yeah.
Heat pumps? Detached 2-car garage?
Yes.
Yeah, you guys see right above the garage, it says basement full, 50% finished too. That's wrong. Private well, private septic.
Yes.
Let's see, we've got pier, riprap, boat lift.
No, there is, I'm sorry, there is no boat lift.
No boat lift?
That was, we had that taken out because it was non-functional and we didn't have a boat to use on it.
Perfect.
We do have a small jet ski.
Okay.
Is that a raised lift, or is that a floating where you drive on it?
It's a raised, a
Okay.
single, hold a single jet ski.
Gotcha. A gazebo, large generator. Do you have a floating dock?
No, we do have a section.
Okay.
I think it's roughly 12 by 8.
Okay. I just want to make sure that our records are accurate, because, for instance, a finished basement, that's creating more value, but it's actually not, then that shouldn't be there.
Did you have a chance to go before the assessor at all, or is this your first time?
That's our first
Our
time.
first time coming in to dispute, okay.
Because sometimes the assessors go by notes from the previous assessments. And
Okay.
so they assume they're right until they're corrected. So that's why it's important for us to correct our records too.
Get up every morning with that assumption. And then I'm correct.
So you all probably haven't had to do any, have you done any renovations whatsoever to the house?
Cosmetic.
Just cosmetic, okay. All right.
It was built in 89, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. So again, it looks to me like we're still on the improvement side of
Yeah.
things in the land.
Yeah, so we did find at least one error, if not more, on your
Oh,
assessment.
good.
Yeah. So,
I hope it goes in our favor.
That's right. Do y'all have any other questions for the Patricks? Neil, anything? Well, thank you all for coming in.
Thank you.
And thank you for helping us correct our records. And we will, we'll be looking at your neighbor's property too and pulling their details to make sure that there aren't inaccuracies one way or the other.
Thank
And
you.
we'll let you guys know by mail.
Thank you for your time.
sure.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you.
All right. Are we ready for Mr. Barnes? Pretty good to go?
Yep.
Neighbor, Mr. Barnes, how you doing? Come on up, buddy. What we're gonna do, Mr.
Looks intimidating.
No. What we're gonna do is allow you to make your presentation, and then any questions the board has, we'll ask of you. And then at the end of each day, after our hearings, then we'll deliberate and make the decision on your request.
Uh-huh.
And then notify you all by mail within 2 to
Okay.
3 weeks, so.
Sounds-
It's good to see you not down the street cutting grass.
Exactly. That time is coming shortly, though.
Yes, sir. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, the main reason I'm here today is a difference in percentage increases to my property as opposed to several other properties, including yours. Mine has been increased 65%. And as you can see at the back edge of this cove here, several other waterfront properties on the street that they're at the point of the street that have very much better water views than I do, have only been increased in the 30s. And one of them has only been increased 10%. And it just doesn't seem fair,
Right.
unless there's some overriding factor that I'm not aware of. I mean, if we're here for equalization, that doesn't seem like it's equal to me.
And it looks like yours increased both on land value and about doubled on improvement value.
Yes, sir.
And to my knowledge, you all haven't, unless you tell me differently, you all haven't done anything to your house.
Well, we put the pool in like 7 or 8 years ago, but nothing.
No, but that was before the last.
Yeah, I understand that.
Since
Yeah,
the last,
no,
assessment, you
but
all haven't
other than
done
that, no.
any major renovations, anything?
Not even any minor renovations.
Let's see, Mr. Barnes, let's go through square footage, 3799, sound about right?
That's about right.
4 bedrooms, 3 and 1/2 baths?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
the housing record had 4, I think, baths on there.
I think they've corrected on here. Heart pine floors, carpet, heat pump. I know you get 2-car garage, well septic, riprap, pier, the pool, patio for the pool, the surrounding the generator. no improvements. And again, so far, there seems to be, of the taxpayers coming before this board, it seems to be a common theme where most of the improvement increases we're seeing are higher than the land improvements. Now, I do know that we'll look at the land too, because your land went up. And some of the others on that street, I know ours went up, but not as much as a neighbor of ours. Theirs went down in land. So
Yeah,
we'll look at that too.
Yeah, I looked at all that.
Yeah. Anything else, Mr. Barnes, you want us to consider?
No, that's about it. It's just the difference in the increases. It's just,
Yeah,
you know, I'm sticking out here like a sore thumb compared to everybody else is what it looks like.
right.
You know, if I was in the same range as everybody else, I wouldn't be here.
Sure, sure. Anybody have any questions, Mr. Barnes? You all have a pull-down attic
I'm sorry.
for your attic access? Is this a pull-down
Yeah,
attic? Anything fancy with your attic?
Got some heat pumps up there, or air handlers or whatever they're called. That's
But
about it.
it's not considered livable space where that's just a storage area. And
Oh, it's just storage, absolutely storage.
Jam brought up a good point. On the tax card, there's two spots of roughly 300 and some square foot, about $5,000 of value there for attic.
For your attic.
Well, there's also attic,
We haven't seen that before. on
there's
any tax
also
card.
attics over the garage and over the bedroom, the two sides.
Right.
But it's,
But that's just for storage also.
But we
There's
haven't seen
nothing
that
else.
on a tax card before as being a separate value. So
okay.
that's helpful information to know. Neil, anything from you, bud?
I don't think so. I think just the biggest thing to look at is sort of the position of the land. I know he had that whole, some sort of algorithm or something for that land value that went into the factor, and I just wonder if that didn't not work as well for his property by, doing it by the,
Well, we'll look at them because
The
literally,
map.
we're 2 lots down.
yeah.
Ours is at one price for home site and then difference per acre. Our neighbors is something totally different, exact same. And then
Oh,
Mr.
wow.
Barnes on the other side of him.
Oh, wow.
So there's really no rhyme or reason that how they picked that, but.
Okay.
Margie, y'all got any questions? Mrs. Davis?
No.
Okay. Mr. Barnes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
And we'll-
Appreciate your
And
consideration.
we'll let you know by mail in the next 2 to 3 weeks of our decision. And I'll see you down the road later on.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I literally pulled that one up last night and looked at his and looked at mine, looked at my neighbors, and I go, 3 lots in a row.
That's crazy.
All right. Good to keep on moving? We're 20 minutes ahead of schedule. but-
I don't see that tax card here. You got the tax card?
Uh,
I don't have that.
For this new one or the old one?
No,
This is spending.
yeah, no, I don't have that sheet. Go back and give it back. the dividing line
There
there.
you go.
Go ahead.
This is line one.
Oh, okay. What did I do? What was out of here?
That was last one, that was Mr. Barnes.
Oh, that was?
Some of them we have applications, some of them have not, and so that's why
Okay,
it's a little different. But it is an application that
thank you.
Okay.
This is the Devers?
Yeah.
Yeah, then let's do that. We're gonna skip to the Devers there at the next appointment
Gotcha.
and wait for Ms. Spinney to get here. Mr. and Ms. Deaver, if you all would like to go before your 10:30 appointment, we're welcome to have you in. Come on up.
Gotcha. James. James.
That's fine. We're getting ours in the road too. No, sir.
James. Okay.
I can't say anything on this one. He looks so different, like a beard. That one,
We're good.
yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you all for coming.
Well, thank you all
What-
very much for
What we
your time.
do is, we let you all have the floor, make your presentation, provide any information you all want us to consider. And then we've got this information on our screens too, so we're seeing the same thing up here. And then we'll go through your tax card, make sure we got all the facts correct.
Okay.
And then the board may ask questions.
Okay.
And then at the end of the day today, after the hearings are done, we go through and deliberate each individual case.
Okay.
And then notify you all by mail in 2 to 3 weeks' time, so.
Okay, all right.
I'll turn it over to you.
All right, well, that sounds good. First, let me go ahead and give you some information that we've put together.
Sure. Information's good.
This one has, they all have an appraisal.
Okay.
And then they have, are you chairman?
It depends. Are you happy or mad right now?
I'm happy right now.
Okay, then I'll be your chairman today. Yes, ma'am.
So this one has the full appraisal with it.
Okay.
I didn't make copies of all of that.
Thank you.
Because I didn't think everyone would want the whole.
Thank you.
And Jen, I know you're not,
Yep.
this one out.
I gotta keep my mouth shut.
Okay.
Our certified in-house appraiser here.
Yep.
So I'm Ann Deaver, my husband Jim, and we'd first like to thank you all very much for your time and listening to our plea here. Our property was assessed at $815,600. The Code of Virginia states that for tax purposes, properties are to be assessed at 100% of their fair market value. Fair market value is defined as what a seller is willing to sell for and a buyer is willing to pay when not under duress. On March 1st, we had an appraisal completed by a certified appraiser, and in your packet, you'll see that the appraised value came to $710,000. You can see that there are 3 other comparable properties that were used there in coming up with that valuation. Also in the packet, there are, I believe, 3 properties that we have found that were sold for, in the price ranges of $600,000, $675,000, and $695,000 respectively. I have myriads more, but I did figure enough was enough. Additionally, there are some issues with the property. Most notably, our land is eroding away. You'll see the plat in your packet there that shows, it has a white oak tree circle. That white oak tree is long gone. We've lost about 12 to 15 feet.
Bank.
A bank.
on the
And you
shoreline.
want to show, we brought some pictures
So the water line's past that oak tree now.
Pardon me? Very much so.
I said the tree was in here somewhere.
Good
And
Lord.
I'm actually standing on the bank, it's hard to tell, the bank drops down about 2 feet here. And we've applied to the wetlands board 2 times to get riprap, and we were turned down both times, because we do have marsh grass there. And so our only option, you see these white stakes out in the water.
Do a living shoreline.
Is to put a living shoreline on the berm in there.
Good Lord.
Which.
Y'all can just pass that along if you like, yeah.
The-
In the
the,
package,
60
yes.
$66,000.
Which may or may not be possible, so.
Thank you.
Land may continue to erode away.
Neil, we'll look at
Good Lord.
And, so that's our optional land thing. The roof is 25 years old, the house. And it's,
Roof.
we've got
So roof's original?
the original roof. yeah.
Okay. The house was built in 99?
$30,000 and $35,000 to replace the roof. Kind of adds to the devaluation of the property, in our opinion. And the, also, we have some siding that, they don't make the siding anymore, needs some siding repair here and there, you know, due to the hurricanes through the years, so that, you know, just, again, devaluates the property.
Sure.
That's the concern. And there's, you know, painting and stuff like that, that's normal.
But that,
Sure does. Almost 700 square foot. Is there, I'll ask the question again, because we saw this in the last one. There's a notification here for value for attic, 700 square foot. Is there anything special about your attic?
it's full of stuff that our kids want to get rid of.
Is it worth $10,000
Jan can
worth of
attest to
stuff?
that. She saw it.
I saw it. I don't think it's a $10,000 attic, though.
It's just a
personally.
standard attic?
Yeah. I mean, it's a walk-in attic,
You can walk.
but
Just steps going up to it?
it's,
Oh, you can walk into
yeah.
it?
Over the kitchen and the garage, there's a room over the kitchen. and
Right.
And a room over the garage, and from there you can walk.
Walk through it?
There's kind of a catwalk, the ceiling's kind of, I don't know, I almost call it vaulted or whatever. But anyway, but there's kind of a catwalk, you can walk to the other side.
And open the door, and that's the
Gotcha.
attic.
Yeah, open the door, that's
So
the
it's mainly used for storage.
Storage.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
There's no.
Lots and lots and lots of storage, I'm afraid.
It's not insulated or finished off.
Okay.
It's all walled up or anything like that, yeah.
They keep begging us to please clean out this stuff so they won't have to.
Oh, so you're not going anywhere.
And I'm not even going to ask you about the accuracy of the data, because I know having one of the best appraisers in the country sitting next to me, she's already done that, so.
Are y'all kin?
Everybody in this county, I think, is kind of
As a
kin, but
matter
no,
of fact,
I'm from
that's-
Richmond, so I'm definitely not kin.
That we have found that to be true. You do not say anything not nice about anybody.
That's right,
Because
never
you're going to
know,
be sitting next
never
to their
know.
cousin in church.
In church.
Let's see the last assessment. Oh, they increased your improvement value by $5,000 because you added a generator in 2023,
Yeah.
roughly? Okay. So besides that, your land went up, but again, the big driver is the improvement value.
Another thing, a point on the land also, we have 2 acres, but again, I don't, you know, not a surveyor and I hadn't had a survey, but a big chunk of it is swamp areas where the.
Well,
ditch
you mean, you can see just by your,
Yeah,
y'all are up to the 50-foot setback, so if you had to be in the 100-foot, it'd be on a buildable property.
right. Yeah, which I think the land value is a little high also, but,
Yeah, they got land,
Well, especially since some of it's gone.
yeah.
not as much as it used to.
Yeah, you're not gaining land, are you?
No, we're not.
So your land value went from 224.8 to 314.8.
But we're losing acreage. so-
Yeah. Anybody have any questions up here?
No, sir.
again, knowing that the facts are correct, now it's up to us to look at those increases of improvements and land to see where the disparity is.
Okay.
So I appreciate you all providing us this information. It's going to be very useful. And in 2 to 3 weeks' time, you'll get a letter from the county about the decision today, so.
If we just like to be equalized from what all our neighbors are selling, actually selling their properties.
Right, right.
So,
All
okay.
right, well, thank you all very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Thank you.
Hey, Fred. How you doing?
You guys have a Herculean task.
Well, so far, so good today.
Good.
So far, so good. Fred, would you like to go early if you're ready? Miss Spinney is, she had a 10:30.
On this.
But since you're here, and instead of waiting around till 11,
Well, you think she's coming?
if she does, it's okay. I mean, I'd rather go ahead if you're ready, and
Well, I
we'll let's let Crystal get it up on the screen real quick, Fred.
Okay,
So what's on this screen, we've got on our screens too in front of us.
right.
And what we do, Fred, we let you give your presentation and provide us with any information you'd like to.
Sure.
Then the board, as we're looking through this, if we have any questions, we'll let you know. And then at the end of the day today, we make our decisions on each case for the day.
Understood.
And then notify you in writing in the mail in 2 to 3 weeks, so.
Good. Sounds good, David. I appreciate you all taking on this task. And
It's an important one.
It
It's
is.
important to
It
have the
is.
taxpayers
If-
have a voice in
Right.
another area of presentation too, so.
I really think, of course, it's an expense issue. I understand this reassessment costs the county $400,000. And that's the reason you do it every 5 years. I would recommend to the county that probably every 2 years or 3 years would be more appropriate for the taxpayers. And the reason is, if you look at the housing prices in Irvington and across the county, historically, if you go back 10 years, it's been about $250 a square foot. And then all of a sudden, because of the economy and the lack of homes on the market because of interest rates and various other reasons, if you look at the shilling numbers for the area and this state and the country, at the end of 2023, the price of homes went up from about $250 to about $400 a square foot. And it's a supply-demand issue and interest rate issue. People weren't selling their homes because they had very low mortgage rates, as you all know. I mean, you've studied this issue. So it's a little unusual that we had the assessment at the end of 2023 when the real estate values were up $150 a square foot. And so when I looked at my assessment, and I've had a fair amount of experience with markets, housing, and commercial. I was president of a company in Richmond that we made commercial real estate loans, and weekly I was looking at appraisals and comparing various market conditions and that sort of thing. So I've got some experience in this, nothing as extensive probably as you guys have. But when I looked at my assessment, my wife and I, the property we own has been in Thomas family since the early 50s. My wife and I bought it from her mother in about 2010. We paid $750,000 for it. We had 2 appraisals done and averaged the 2 appraisals to make sure that her sister got an equal value with the sale. So we renovated the little pink cottage, what they call the pink cottage, and we were out of town during the freeze in like 2013 or so, and the pipe burst and it destroyed the property. It buckled the slab. It was a little cinder block of slab river cottage at the time, and we renovated that in the little guest house. And so I convinced the insurance company in Richmond that it was a knockdown, so they finally agreed after about a year of haggling. They wanted to try to renovate it. It was impossible. I had a structural engineer look at it and said, you can't do that. He said, Fred, you'll be looking every morning when you get up looking for cracks in the walls. And so finally the insurance company let us tear down the old property, the old cottage. And we built a large, we went up a second story, put in a second story, added, we couldn't change the footprint, so we had to go up. So we have a very fine house, and I'll give you a picture of it that you can pass around. And I don't want to overextend my welcome here, but I do have some information I think is pertinent. And I hope I brought it. Actually, I didn't, but it's a nice house. It's not a great house, but it's a nice house, and we're very fond of it. So when I looked at the appraisal, the reassessment, I noticed that we went from the 2019 assessment was $1,091,600. Land $589,200, building $502,400, $4,091,600. The reassessment at the end of 2023 had the land at $614,200 and the building at $1,063,500. So we had a 4.25% increase in the land, which is kind of unusual. It just popped out $25,000, and I wish I could be that succinct in my valuations when you just add $25,000 to a land value. And the building, which is a little unusual, I think, went up 112%. Okay? So now the total value of the property went up $586,100. That was the first assessment, or the reassessment. It's hard for me to believe that the building went up 112% over a 5-year period. And I know Case Shilling, that, over that time frame, residential properties went up about 47% nationwide. So we're looking at a pretty dramatic increase in our property vis-a-vis the national average. And unfortunately, they don't give local statistics. I had a discussion with Jason in the original meeting of the reassessment, and I pointed out some of the anomalies I had found with homes in Irvington and the assessed value of various properties that I was very familiar with because I know the people, I've been in the homes, I know the acreage, I've got information on all these properties, which I requested for this board to review and compare and contrast with my property. Because I really think, based on what I've looked at with the 2019 assessment, based on the new assessments, it looks like I'm subsidizing my neighbors on a valuation standpoint. Anyway, Jason was kind enough to reduce our assessment by $60,500. So the total increase on our property was 48.2%. It came down from 54% to 48.2%. I don't know whether that was land or buildings or whatever. But you have in front of, and that's our property. I think the building increase was pretty dramatic when you double it over 5 years. compared to other properties in my neighborhood. I'll give you an example. On the property across the street from me, and Redfin, incidentally, Redfin, as you're familiar with, they're not very good at it, but, and they're all over the board in terms of looking at my property and looking at home and Remax and Redfern. They're all, the disparity between the highest and lowest of those is dramatic. So they're not particularly accurate. The one I thought was the most accurate was Redfin, which put our value at 692 King Corner Drive at $1,277,529, and that's up to date, and that's an increase of 10% since last month's average, according to Redfin. And I think that's fairly close to what I would list the property for, maybe another 100,000, but that's pretty close to what I think the market value of our property is. It's a great piece of property. We're right next to the Tides Inn. We overlook the dock of the Tides Inn. We see all the boats coming and going, and it's a very tranquil area to live, and we love it, frankly. But the problem is you've locked in for the next 5 years a valuation that I think is higher than it should be. And it's up to you to analyze that vis-a-vis the other properties that I requested the board to look at. One is directly across the street, across the creek from me, and that's Mr. Burton, Ed Burton's house, friend of mine. I've been in it many times. He bought this property for $1.3 million, plus in 2017, $1.3 million, plus he gave him $100,000 for all the furnitures and fixtures in the property, which does not take into account. When you look at properties that sell down here, a lot of times the people are leaving, going to smaller properties, Westminster, wherever, and they sell the furniture. And that's listed as a sales price in the comps. And a lot of times they're not true to the market at the time. Ed bought this property and home values it now at $2,050,000. And this property is, hope I brought it, is in Weems across the creek from us. Here's some.
Hayden Road.
Is it Peyton Road?
Yeah, 155 Hayden Road.
Right. This is David, this is our property.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's the house we built. And when I look at his property, Ed Burton's property, if his assessed value in 2019 is whatever it was, it should be, based on my property's increase, it should be 2.6 million assessed value today. I don't know what it is because I don't have the comps and the information. That's something y'all need to look at and compare and contrast with Kendall and my home. Another property I think is equally nice as our property, equally sized as our property, building and land. Their land is a little lower, is 792 King Carter Drive. And if I'm correct, Jason told me that this property was assessed in 2019 at a little over $900,000. Okay?
792.
This is Dr. Lockhart, Debbie and Dr. Lockhart's property. They bought it from the guy that owns the Tides Inn. What's his name? He and his wife. It's his mother's property. They bought it in 2011.
Gotcha.
paid $700,000 for it. And in 2019, it was assessed at a little over 900,000, whereas our property was $1,191,000. They completely renovated, she's a decorator, completely renovated, put in a new boathouse, added a wing on the property. And I don't know what their assessment is today, but if it isn't close to mine, then the numbers are wrong. And that's something I would like for y'all. That's 792 Key Carter Drive, the Lockharts. Another property is Mr. Fleet's property, which sold, which is a beautiful piece of land and building, as compared.
It's down in York.
Yeah.
Yep.
As ours. It sold in September of '23 for $1.7 million. And I don't know what the assessed value is today, but if you add $1.7 million being the market price in 2003, the question is, what is the assessment that was put on this property in 2023? Is it comparable to mine, structure-wise? I mean, that house is far more attractive, I think, than our property, and about the same square footage. We've got the main house, and we've got this little guest house that we renovated, which we don't use. The grandkids stay there. That's about the extent of it. So we have a guest house that is a cinder block on slab that we renovated in the outside and inside. There's no kitchen, there's no stove. You really can't live there. So whatever value I think the value he put on that structure is pretty close to what it's worth. So I'm not arguing about that point. I think it's fairly comparable to what he assessed it at. But I'd like for you to look at the Fleet property, and you know, the difficulty with doing this is you're comparing properties that you say are comparable, but they probably aren't. Only somebody like David and appraisals will tell you in depth what the value of properties are. These assessments are all over the place. In my little bit of research and a little bit of information I was able to get from the county, I would like to get 2023 assessment worksheets. And then I can compare mine to theirs and what the differences and disparities were percentage increase-wise. That's really the analysis that needs to be done when you look at my property. And I'm sure y'all will do a good job. I don't know how many people are presenting before the board here today and what your workload is outside of your regular occupations.
Just 15 today,
15?
and probably 15 tomorrow, and probably 15 on Friday. We're trying to stay at 15 per day.
That's pretty
I
heavy.
think we've got 5 or 6 hearings set up, the date set up, so.
How many total do you have?
A lot more than what we had before, I can tell you that much, so.
Well, that's because of the dramatic increase.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
the county's picked up $1 billion in real estate value over the last 5 years. And I appreciate that the rate's going to come down. You know, the state requires the county to look at their budgets and then determine the millage rate that
Right.
they will charge. And that's the way it should be.
Yep.
So the rate's going to come down dramatically. I'm not an idiot. I understand a lot of this stuff, probably more than the average citizen. But,
Mr. Minton, can I ask you something real quick?
Sure.
I do see a difference, and I can't figure out where it's coming from. The main house, on his worksheet, it's saying was 2,400 square feet, versus this other tax card we have is 3,200 square feet.
It is closer to 31,000,
Okay.
3,100 square feet.
Okay.
And the guest cottage, you know, there's a place we put tractors and, I mean, lawnmowers and blowers and all that kind of stuff. There's two pieces on that guest house. The guest house, the area you could spend the night in, not a long-term solution to anybody, but it's probably about 800 square feet. So we've got a total of probably 3,900 square feet of usable space,
Okay.
okay?
Okay, good.
Now, I don't know where you got 2,400.
Yeah.
I think that's from the old tax cards. That's the biggest reason for
But
the
see-
big
Well,
increase.
you know, the original cottage that we knocked down was about 1,900 square feet, okay? And then we added the second story when we rebuilt the home.
Okay.
But the closer numbers, which is one of the things that disturbed me when I looked at the assessment,
Right.
was where did he get 2,400? And you know, and I'm not denigrating Jason and his company. I think that my advice to the county next time you do an assessment is get somebody that's familiar with waterfront property. Because it's dramatically different from properties in Southwest Virginia.
One of the issues with that is apparently that I learned when we did our training, I did this 5 years ago as well, but there's only 10 people in the state that are licensed to do this.
Right.
I mean, that seems like that, I think the 2,400 would have come from the previous assessment.
And you see on his notes, Jason wrote 3,200 square foot per owner.
Per owner.
Yeah, when the lady came by to walk the property, and the other thing, you know, square footage is square footage. There's a difference in our square footage and the interior and the market value of the home versus another house that's got the same square footage that hadn't been renovated in 25 years.
Right.
And how do you balance that on an assessment when you don't even go in the property?
Right.
I mean, you don't look at the interior. And so the whole thing is kind of seat of the pants, if you'll pardon my.
We had an instance, we were selling a property in Weems, closed a couple weeks ago. And the buyer had a contingency that was subject to appraiser verifying square footage, which is kind of odd. We'd had it done. And the appraiser came up 3,500 square foot less than the tax card.
Wow.
Well, we as realtors go by either the owner's, you know, representation of it or the county, because we don't go out and measure. And so it came down to it where the buyer wanted a $250,000 reduction in price because of the accuracy of the square footage. So I called Beth at the commissioner's office, and I said, Beth, who's right? Is the county right? Is the appraiser right? Do we have to get an architect? And she says, as long as you've got a certified appraisal stamped and signed, and they've done the square footage measurements, and we'll take that. So, you know, it does behoove us and taxpayers to make sure the square footage is correct.
Right.
So you're not paying, you know, this taxpayer was paying based on 10,500 square foot for the past 15 years, when it was actually 7,500. So I learned something with that.
Yeah, there are errors. You know, I was on a loan committee at a bank for a number of years, so I saw a lot of residential appraisals, and they're all across the board. I mean, they are. You almost have to depend on people like David and the other realtors in the community that know the properties, that know a lot of the people, and have been in some, and they walk the interior of the property, and they stage it sometimes. I mean, it's almost you're almost better served by going with the realtors and their knowledge of the market and their knowledge of the home as to what the market price of that property should be on a sale. Probably even more than the appraiser, frankly, from what I've seen. The realtors have to be knowledgeable, they have to be current, they have to know what they're doing, they have to be familiar with the properties. I gave a list. They asked me to have the board look at these 4 or 5 properties that I put down.
Gotcha.
And I think they are representative of our property. And if you see one skewed one way or the other, then you need to balance that out. And I think you have the expertise to do that.
Sure.
And my wife and I can afford the real estate taxes. I'm just looking at it as an equity thing. Is it fair to me to have my property, which I think is comparable to this property, to have an assessed value of 30% higher?
Right.
And that's the issue here. And that's up to the board to determine. I've given you the properties I think are comparable to my property, based on my knowledge of the people and what they've done to them. I've been in them. If you look at Ed Burton's house in Weems, it's gorgeous. Pool house, livable pool house. I don't know, he's probably got 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 5 baths. We've got 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths in the main house, and 2 bedrooms and a bath, a small bath in the guest house, and then a sitting area where we have a TV, that sort of thing. So it's just remarkable to me to see the contrast in the 2019 assessment information that I looked at, and the RE/MAX and Home and Redfin and what I think are current market valuations, although they are really across the board. I wouldn't put a lot of faith in I would put far more faith in David telling me what he thought the market value of our property was if we were going to put it on the market than I would an appraiser or any other information that I got, assessments or anything. I mean, I remember in Richmond, our assessments, on average, I would sell the homes that I was in and the commercial buildings that I was in at least 30% higher than the assessments in Richmond. And that's the way the market worked in Richmond. But there are times when housing prices go down in every market and times when they go up dramatically. In 2023, they're up dramatically over the historical 10-year average, if you look at it, cost per square foot. One of the hard things I think when I looked at was trying to look at the land values. I think the land values are particularly high, more so than the buildings, and partly because they're on water, and everybody has a great view. Everybody loves their home because they look at water. But $500,000, $600,000, which is mostly a driveway and some areas around our home and a landing area where we have a dock. Jason, when I talked to Jason did an aerial of my property. I was saying, well, Jason, I think these numbers are a little high. And he did an aerial. He said, but you've got 2 boathouses. I said, Jason, nobody has 2 boathouses. Why would you have 2 boathouses? As a matter of fact, we're knocking down Summer Bay, the company that does docks. We're knocking down the boathouse. It's the cost to maintain it is more than knocking it down, and it actually obstructs the view of the water. So we're taking that down. There are 2 boathouses, ours and our neighbors, the Smithers. We granted them, or the Kendall's father granted them an easement from their property that goes down to the water at Carter's Creek, and they built a boathouse there. And so there are 2 boathouses that looks like they're on my property, but actually they're on his property on the easement. So we only have 1 boathouse for your information. So anyway, that's, I think I think you have the tools, the skills, and hopefully the time to look at what residents are looking at as compared to other properties in their neighborhood that they think are comparable. And
Absolutely,
that's
yeah.
the only thing I'm asking. If you add this, if you take the square footage up of our house, then the assessment's gonna go up. And so, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is, and I'm not gonna complain about that. I'm not gonna hold you to 2,400 square feet.
Anybody else have any more questions? Mr. Madden? Fred, thank you very much, buddy. Appreciate it. Anybody need to use the restroom or anything? Good break.
No, thank you.
No? Okay.
I'm good.
Ooh, no, my
Ready
ears.
to rock.
You the lady or the man?
Miss Benny? Good luck, thank you, Fred. Appreciate it, buddy. How are you? Good. We're going to turn the floor over to you and let you tell us what you want us to hear, and then if we have any questions.
All right. My property is on 813 Blueberry Point Road. The map number is 3428G. On receiving my new tax assessments for '24, I was horrified to learn that the value of my home had gone up 87.5% on my tax bill, or 49.9%. In December of '23, I attended a informal appeal, and at that time was told that a written reassessment would reduce my taxes by $800, but in truth, they were reduced $232. The '24 reassessment land value was $224,500. The '24 reassessed improvement value was $408,000. The '24 reassessment value was $632,500. The county tax levy was $39,984.75. A percentage change in the levy of 41 from the '23 levy was 41.69. The real estate assessment is excessive, the increase. 2024 reassessment for my property. Oh, I'm good. Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
hello.
That's better, thank you.
The 2024 reassessment for my property increased by a total of 41.7% over '23. Land value increased $15,000, 7.1% over '23. Improvements increased $171,000 or 72%. How could the 72.2% be allowed? No improvements have been made to justify this increase. The basic maintenance only, no renovation. The original kitchen, bathroom, siding, deck, dock. The last reassessment was in 2019. It was $6,200 or 1.4%. The average homes now sell for about 4% under asking. I'm an 83-year-old recent widow living independently on a fixed budget of Social Security, approximately $20,000 a year, which may vary be close to the Health and Human Services guidelines of $15,000 a year for poverty. I cannot afford a 42% increase in my tax bill. My monthly income has decreased since my husband's death by 30%. I must budget extremely carefully. My income is spent on food, health care, home maintenance, taxes, and maintenance. I maintain the house myself and do all the cleaning and yard work and anything that needs to be done. The terms of my mortgage require that to remain in my home, I must maintain it and pay taxes and insurance. If I do not do one or more of these things, I will have to forfeit my property. It's a reversed mortgage with a variable interest rate that I don't think at this time I can sell my property to cover that. Okay, I have two comparables. One is at 921 Blueberry Point Road. It has 3,248 square feet. Mine is only 2,240 with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It sold in April of 21 for $468,500. The 22 property taxes were $2,223. It was extensively remodeled in the past 2 years and is now valued at $561,500. The Lancaster County records indicate that it is assessed in 224 for $507,700 with estimated 2024 property taxes at $3,198, an increase of 43% over 22. Another such property is 135 Corral Cove or Corral Lane, 2,830 square feet, 4 bedroom, 3 bath.
Ms. Spinney, I'm sorry, can you repeat the 135, what was the street name for that one?
Corral Cove,
Corral Cove, gotcha.
135.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. In 2018, it was assessed at $445,700. It was extensively remodeled in 2019, and in 2020, it was assessed at $748,500, an increase of about 68%. In May of 23, the property was sold for $980,000. The 2024 Lancaster County record show an assessed value of $953,600, or an increase of 27.4%. I can understand how you would believe that my property is comparable, yet 16% smaller. And again, could be considered similar, yet I have not sold my home nor made any improvements on my house to warrant a 72% increase in the structure. I love living on Blueberry Point Road and would like to continue to reside. Living as I do on a fixed mortgage, this property level of 42% in property taxes, an increase of $1,173 over my tax bill, and this would be going forward, would create a significant burden that I do not know how to overcome. The end. Now, David, you were in my house shortly after my husband died,
Yes, ma'am.
and you offered me a price that I couldn't accept because I couldn't cover the mortgage,
Yes, ma'am.
and offered to rent it back to me. I couldn't accept that because I would not have money to live on.
Right.
So you know that the house is basically original.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing has been done. The yards and everything look nice, but I do it all.
Sure. Sure.
Plus, I was my husband's caretaker until he passed away.
I know.
So, I'm blessed with good health, thank God,
Yes, ma'am.
that I can handle a tractor, a blower, a small chainsaw, whatever. And I hope to continue to do that. I never dreamt that, I always thought that I would be able to leave my home at will. I
Sure.
never dreamt that it would be taken away from me in this way. I ask you to consider being less aggressive in my tax bill. The end.
Just a comment, ma'am, that hopefully is somewhat helpful. Hi, my name's Neil. I think, whatever the county decides how much money they need to raise.
Right.
And so I don't, the hope for everybody, I think, is that when they decide how much money they need to raise, that the tax rate is going to come down significantly. So hopefully now whether or not they're going to increase, we don't know that information. That's kind of for the county. But I think the hope is that they don't end up having to raise a whole lot more revenue than they did the year before, and that the tax rate will come down relatively significantly. So hopefully, whatever happens with your taxes, it's not, you don't just take the old tax rate and apply it to the new assessment. So hopefully that is a help beyond what we might be able to do when we go through and look at kind of the particulars of your home. And it's fantastic that David knows it firsthand. That's really helpful when we're kind of going through everything. So hopefully the increase won't be anywhere close to what it might look like on paper, regardless of what we're kind of able to figure out when we look at neighboring properties and things. And you had a ton of great information, so thank you for doing the research before coming in today.
Be kind.
Yeah.
I know that there are many people in my, going along this journey with me that don't want to leave their homes, and if they have to, where would they go? So I know a tax increase, I knew that would be coming, but nothing like this.
And I really don't think it's anybody's intention, county, taxation department, it's anybody's intention to increase taxes to a point where you're forcing people out of their homes. I don't think that's the case at all, and I feel terrible about the position you're in, and I appreciate all of the information you've provided us, because today, once our last case is over, we're going to go back case by case and then make a determination on changes if need be. Now, one thing I can tell you that we've seen consistently is land values haven't changed very much, but the improvement values have changed drastically. So that's where we need to go back in and where the assessor may think your home should be assessed the same way as a home that's recently renovated or.
Right,
You know.
that's why I brought this. My
Yes.
husband owned a real estate company, so basically I understand what's going on.
Right.
I'm not internalizing it, but I understand it. So,
Sure. And so that's where we have
yeah,
some leeway to make adjustments if we deem that your property is not similar to the finishes of another house
No.
neighboring you, and so.
they're all different.
Right, and so we're tasked with making sure everyone's taxed equitably, and to take the tax burden and spread it amongst so that not one individual taxpayer is getting unfair taxation, and that's why we do these hearings, to give it, you know, the first couple opportunities with the assessor, but then if the taxpayer is still not happy, then to come before this board, and then we have the wherewithal to be able to make adjustments, so.
Another thing, I'm across the street from the gun club.
You are.
That's
right.
another deterrent for people wanting to buy. Plus, I have 8 black walnut trees that are very prolific. And in the fall, it's weeks of nut pickup. So
Right.
I wish I could find the donor tree because I wouldn't have all those nuts.
Can you pull up the gun range, Crystal? So I mean, you're about as close as you can be? Are you about as close as you can be to the gun range and
Not
beyond?
across the street, across the street and up a little.
Okay.
And when the wind blows, it's even louder.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you are visited, but on nice days, it's from morning till night. The other day, I noticed it was raining and somebody was still out
The
there.
only time the gun club is closed down is Sundays from sunup till
Noon.
12 noon.
I know
30,
that.
3429,
Now, I have friends that live right next door to it that are across the road, but they aren't, it's their second home.
Okay.
no, we've heard it at our house a couple times if the wind's blowing right, down Fleece
Yeah,
Bay.
and David owns the property right next door. His family does.
Yeah, we do, 26 day.
And I even cleaned up trees of his that fall on my property.
Well, thank you. You can send the bill to me and I'll send it right to my father-in-law.
You noticed you haven't got any phone calls.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Swaney?
Thank
Well,
you.
again, thank you for coming in,
Okay.
and we will let you know by mail in 2 to 3 weeks,
Okay,
once the deliberation's done today of our decision, and thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Julian, I should call you our in-house AV assistant now, so we can hear. I could tell. Thank you. Thank you, buddy.
I'll see if I can get you to lunch on time.
Actually, this worked out because you were scheduled for 11:15, so it
Okay,
all worked. Floor is yours, buddy.
I'll do it. I wish that lady was my neighbor. Cleaning up my brush too, David.
And I don't even own the property, it's my family's, but hey, I appreciate that.
I just want to say, I'm going to give you some comments today and some testimony on factual data that I put together for comps, et cetera, aerial photographs, and I've given Crystal a copy of everything, both hard copy and digital, and I'm going to give you the same, each one of you, the tables that I've assembled on comparables, as well as my analysis. I know at least one of you in this room, maybe your chairman, is familiar with the green, but I just want to bring up to date, tried to deal with this even before the reassessment with Mr. Cohen, providing him the same data, both before and with his field staff. Regrettably, that was all ignored. I'm Bruce Julian, 9 Troon Place in Weems. I live in District 5. I want to thank each of you on this board for serving, to obtain factual data regarding the inequities and disparate treatment of the current reassessment. I'm not here to complain about my taxes at all. I think the taxes we pay in this county yield a whole lot more than people appreciate. There's a lot of good things going on in this county. I happen to serve on the Wetlands Board. I'm also chair of the group building the new county parks, helping the county build the new county parks. So I'm aware of how funds are used, and this is the skinniest staffed county I've ever lived in. We're not overstaffed. So I'm not here to complain about my taxes. The factual data that I've assembled conclusively demonstrates and reveals the reassessments in violation of the Code of Virginia. The copies of this data I'll give to each one of you in these folders right here. The reassessment exceeds the fair market value, and my tables and data demonstrates that. The reassessment is not equalized or equitable with similar or even identical properties in the green, adjacent properties, or other waterfront condominiums in the county. I've got that analysis too with 2 other condominium associations, waterfront condominium associations. The description on the properties, and I've got all 24 of the properties in the green, of the condo unit is not accurate. The green was developed over 50 years ago by the Stevens family. I think most of you know that. And the association contains 12 paired townhouse buildings, which yield 24 units. There are only 4 basic floor plans, 4, with only minor variations between those. While they look different on the exterior, there's only 4 plans. David's been in several of these. The Green Association, the reassessment has 22 different assessed values. 22 with 4 plans. Identical units, joined units, including the one I live in, have different values. Identical, square footage, etc., with different far-ranging values. The values have increased of identical units at different rates over this same period of the reassessment. The same connected units have different land values. The increase in the total assessed values of the units wildly ranges from 25% to 74% on this same 8 acres. Some go up 25%, the highest 74% on this same parcel. The most recent actual sales, there's 12 of them, of recent sales over the last few years, only one exceeds the reassessed value. Everybody else has not sold for this assessed value. Included improvement features do not exist on some of these property records. Bulkheads.
Wow.
They don't exist.
Let me ask you a question. With the bulkheads, I know the piers there are owned by
LLCs.
individual LLCs.
Right.
But the bulkheads, isn't that part of the real estate, right, for that
Yep.
owner?
Yes, sir, because it's above mean low. So it is part of the real estate.
Gotcha.
The assigned values of some of the improvements, such as our wastewater treatment pumps, individual buildings, have been assigned to individual landowners.
That's interesting.
And all of the improvements on the common area are owned collectively by each one of us equally.
Right.
The assessment, the legal description that I get on my tax bill, and the description carried to the county indicates I own 1/24 of 8.37 acres. The 24 owners own equal shares of the association and the improvements. The unit owners do not own the land under our homes. I don't even own the land under my house. I've got an association, I'm a stakeholder, shareholder. I own 1/24, yet we have all of these far-ranging land values. Side by side, different land values. The reassessment has not increased the value of land. I've got 14 adjacent properties. We're on Dead and Bones Cove, the main stem of Carter Creek. I'll give you an aerial photograph that lists all these properties I've numbered, and I've got all of their assessment data as well. All of these 14 adjacent properties, land value has not increased 1 penny. All the way around. Yet this 8-acre island, the land value is going up. Mr. Cohen refused to.
Y'all have gold or oil on that property?
Well, we're trying to tell the grandkids that Dead and Bones Cove, there is buried pirate treasure.
But more on y'all side of the code than the other, I guess.
And, you know, I was so frustrated by Mr. Cohen, who refused to look at any of this data. He wouldn't even look at these tables. That was a 7-minute waste of my time.
Yeah.
These are, and of course, you know, our condominium is adjacent to private single-family homes. The increased value for the land value in the green has increased on every unit, yet none of the adjacent properties has increased 1 penny. We're taking notes, David, but I'm going to give you all this. The average land value for the 14 properties, here's the most astounding thing. If you take the 14 adjacent properties in that cove, all the way around, all different prices of houses, all single-family homes, yes, I agree, is $53,000 an acre. What do you suppose the land value of the green is? $365,000 an acre. That's about 8 times greater than all of our single-family homes around us. Now, I understand, you know, 50 years of reassessments, probably starting with the green being the first condominium in the county,
Yeah.
probably through some curves at some people. But if you keep compounding reassessment, I can see how some of this arbitrary stuff came about. Let me just, I've got another table here that just looks at other condominiums. One being the Harbors, on Fleets Bay Road.
Indian Creek, yep.
The other one being, on Indian Creek, the other Sloop Point, trying to get
Right, okay.
condominiums that are on the water.
Right.
Similar. While much newer, the Harbor and Sloop Point condominiums reveal inequitable assessment values and procedure compared to the green. In the Harbor, the assessed land value is shared equally by the 14 owners there. There's 7 buildings, 14 units. All their land values are the same. The assessed land value in the Harbors, $187,000 an acre, compared to ours at $336,000 an acre. On Sloop Point, the assessed land value is shared equally again by all 18 owners. Their assessed land value is $104,000 an acre. In the green, we have 22 different land values. But the county says we all own equal shares. The deed says that. We own equal shares. The assessed land value is 2 times that greater than the Harbors condos. And of Sloop Point, we're 3.6 times greater on the land value alone. In summary, it appears the Green Association has one of the highest land assessed values per acre of any residential land in the county. And the assessment and the reassessment overstating the land value of 7.7 times that of all those adjacent landowners. Therefore, my ask is we request the assessed land value be the same as the other land values of adjacent property owners, and the value be distributed evenly among all. I need to say at this point, I'm not here to represent the association. While I have served on the board, the association decided not to. I'm here to represent myself. I understand you can only act on the property my wife and I own.
Actually,
But I know you have other authorities too. Identical condos have been assessed at different values. I mean, talk about easy comps. All you got to do, same, that'd be the same.
Yeah.
You know, when you don't go indoors, I invited the field person, do you want to see inside? Nope. You know, some places most of the places in the Green have had extensive remodeling. There's some that are 50 years original.
yeah.
This is the only county I've ever lived in where a building permit doesn't trigger a reassessment. County's missing out on some revenue there. Therefore, with those assessments, we request a reassessment take place by a qualified licensed appraiser to obtain factual data on fair market value, equitable valuations to achieve compliance with the Code of Virginia. Obviously, this assessment does not comply with code. There are no bulkheads, and some of the improvements are, what we have is equally shared. Therefore, we need to get all these improvements consistent in the association, and whatever it is, divide it. The only thing we've really got is roads, a wastewater pump, and a portable shed, which probably doesn't even get assessed, whatever that is. While the factual data speaks for itself, I welcome any questions you might have and any future questions as follow-up after you digest this multitude of numbers. I've got all the percentages, I've got all the data, the Virginia Met website, what a awful thing to have to work with. But I pulled all that down, distributed this information to my neighbors, but would welcome any opportunity. If you have any follow-up questions in your deliberations, I'll be happy to come and meet with you or answer on the phone. I appreciate your time. I also know what it is on the high-paid job you get up there. Questions?
Yeah, on the land value, so basically to get that value of 387 per acre, you took the 22 units and added up what he put as the land value?
Yes.
And then, you know, this is just my guess that what he's trying to do there is to put a value on the land that each condo sits on, right? I mean, those ones that are right out on the point where you're looking down to the entrance of the Rappahannock River are certainly more valuable than the first ones when you come in on the left where you're at the back of the cove and when the leaves are on the tree, you barely have a view. How would you advise the assessor to take that into account when trying to assess individual units?
It's really the value of the view shed. And, you know, I don't think our view sheds are any better than Bob Bragg's, looking right down this stream. And he's one of the lowest land values there is out there. And I would try to use that logic. Well, maybe a house connected, one's got a better view than the other. It's the same house, looking the same way, and they have wildly different values. So I don't think he tried to do that. Even as they look at the adjacent properties, I don't think he looked. I asked him that. I said, "Did you look? You know, the point properties versus the long view. Everybody's got a water view. Some of them aren't as good as the others, but when you look at the properties right across the creek that are facing the green, you get the same disparate treatment." I tried to get logic out of that, but I couldn't make any.
Did he have any comments to why you all's land value is different than the Harbor and Sweet Point?
His quote, "I will not discuss land value," end quote.
Interesting.
That's why I'm here. He did reduce, after he started making assertions about, well, you don't have, the association pays for all your exterior maintenance, your roof. I was hearing other appeals. He was asking questions about the age of your roof, and I said, "Oh, no, you don't understand. I have to pay for all of my exterior maintenance. It's not included in my Honda fees." I said, I went over this data with you guys before you started. Went over it with your field person. I gave him these tables. You refused to look at them. So he didn't want to see data. He ran his formulas and came out the number.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
Very interesting.
Yep, very.
Well, it's sad. It's sad because, you know, I'm not going to get into opinions, but data speaks for itself. Comps, actual sales speak for themselves. I understand that reassessments and appraisals are not a science, but when you look at the numbers and you look at these wild percentage increases, 24 to one house is 74%. That same house went 50. How do you explain that?
Well, that's point in case why our board exists is to be fair and equitable amongst all the taxpayers' burdens on the county to make sure there's no raging disparities.
Equitability and transparency, I think, is key.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when I look at, you look at, there's not any dumpy houses around our cove.
Right.
And you know, we all understand, yes, they've gone up in value, but you ought to be able to explain this to me.
Right.
And after trying to explain them, I don't own the property under my house. We're all the same.
Yeah.
We all own, we rise together, we fall together.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one more question. Do you think that, I would imagine one of the discrepancies there is that the Green is a much bigger community than the Harbor is, right? Number of units.
14 units versus 24, but their acreage is bigger.
So do you think that the issue is that the Harbor's land should be more valuable, or that the Green's land should be less valuable?
I would think the land value should be comparable to the location. Some people argue Carter Creek versus Indian Creek versus Rappahannock. You know, trying to comp condos in this county
Oh,
is
yeah.
about impossible
Yeah.
because, particularly the bank,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what's sold in the last 6 months? Nothing.
Right.
So,
I don't think have any of the condo types sold. I mean, one sold this year in the Harbor, right?
A lot of.
But I don't think anything sold during the assessment period, right?
I believe so.
Sloop
Thank
Point
you, Bruce.
has sold, but nothing.
I feel like Sloop Point is so out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think so.
When you look at just land.
Certainly nothing in the Green. When's the last time something
Harbor-
sold in the Green?
The harbor
been a
units,
about 2 years.
the harbor
Yeah.
improvement units are larger in square footage.
Newer.
Newer, larger, but land, yeah, they're all paired residences. I mean, it's,
I tried to get comparable.
yeah,
Paired units, not individual units, not in town.
Right.
Front.
yep,
Only for that analysis. To me, land value should be comparable. I mean, if you look at the Tides Inn, you guys look at that number, Tides Inn's only worth $70,000 an acre. Commercial land, $70,000, you didn't go to many either. You see that, the properties there, I've got them marked on the aerial photograph. So, you know, why do these properties go up in land value? Nothing else.
mm-hmm,
There's differences in the deeds and the condominiums, as you know.
sure,
You know, in the harbor, they actually own the land under their house, I think 5 feet beyond their footprint. I don't know anything outside the thing on my house, except for that 124 of 8.5 acres.
And so but yours
Yeah.
was the same thing. Your land value didn't increase between the last assessment on this one. Is that correct?
I'm gonna show you that.
2019, the land value was 125. 2024, the land value was 125 for your,
I got my reassessment.
am I reading that wrong?
That's what I have. Land.
My land went from 125 to 135.
I don't see it either. Maybe we can get, Chris, maybe we can get Commissioner's Office to find
Here's
out
my-
why that's changed, it's not the same as ours. 27B, 3U.
I went out, he adjusted me 5% down. In other words, I was at 135, I went to 125.
Okay, I'm sorry, never mind, we're good.
He
That-
took,
that's
he
what it
took me
was.
down, he took me down on improvements, $7,600.
I don't
Makes
understand.
sense. The association should do that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, I was asking.
I'm just looking at the reassessment now.
Yeah. No, we have a bunch of different sheets of paper too.
I got the first, yeah, we need more paper, right? I gave you some more. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bruce, thank you very much, bud.
Okay.
So it's more, they just,
It's a group.
yeah.
Well, I threw a lot of numbers at you here, so that's why I gave you copies of this stuff.
Thank you.
If there's any
But that's
questions
the
about my column headings or anything like that,
Give them a deed for that.
tried to make it so this doesn't, when you see these wild shifts
Yeah.
on the same house
That's the way
Yeah.
it read in the deed,
Right.
of 124.
that didn't have any improvements or, I mean, we cannot change the footprint of our units.
That's right, yeah,
We can't add on. They're locked.
right.
Thank you.
All righty, thank
Does the
you.
deed read that, his deed read that he owns that?
1/24th interest in the 8.37 acres, yeah.
It's a mess.
It is.
Okay.
Thank you, buddy.
And it was done, that was probably done because it was the first condo.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also done in stages. Whereas the new condos, boom, it's all divided
Right.
originally. These were built in the early seventies over about 5 years. And
Oh.
I probably didn't know exactly what to do with condos.
Probably never heard of them.
So, and probably taxes started in
Well, it sounds like the assessor didn't know what to do with the media this time either, so.
I
Yeah.
tried twice,
Well, thanks for all this information, Bruce.
Yep.
Very helpful. We'll let you know 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time.
I'm glad I'm on the wetlands board and not your board.
I don't know, we had a taxpayer in here earlier arguing, he wanted to do riprap. The Wetlands Board was pushing more towards a living shoreline. So I think I'd rather been on this board than y'all's board for that one. So-
We haven't had to have a sheriff come in yet. You know, we're basically an extension of our city.
Yeah.
And we have to comply with state law as
Sure,
you do.
sure.
And so, you know, until people can show us what a living shoreline will not work,
Mhm.
we practice more traditional stuff. An interesting thing, if you want to talk a little bit, was how the assessor, you know, we've never had riprap show up on the assessment. What do you do about shoreline protection that's not on the property?
Like a living shoreline or a jetty?
I'm talking about, we're getting ready to spend a couple dollars down at Mill Point.
Yeah.
And the landings, it's gonna be offshore.
Mm-hmm.
Who's gonna get assessed to?
Well, let's see, the state of Virginia, let's go back and tax the state.
On their block, you know, anything,
Yeah.
anything below mean lows.
Is a state.
Is not private property.
Right.
Except for the King's Grant.
Right.
Right.
Parts of
Yep.
where you do on the bottom.
Yep.
But you still got a permit, but, all of a sudden, riprap has showed up on our taxes. And I'm probably gonna get a conversation with the supervisors, do we really wanna penalize people?
For protecting the land?
Water quality?
In protecting their land?
And do we really wanna do that?
Yeah.
It is, if we're gonna do it, let's do it everywhere.
Yeah. Typically, we see it, right? Like on a private
Yeah.
Yeah.
property, they have, I mean,
Yeah.
kind of compares to a dock too, right? The dock
Right.
Yeah, and-
is technically not on the
and if you look
land, but it is
closely,
a,
he's treated those differently. I asked him that question about the dock.
Mhm.
A private single-family home dock is done one way, and community dock is appraised a different way.
I saw in there only 1,000 for the,
Yeah.
the, the,
Per 24. Wow,
Yeah.
okay,
But a single-family home is square footage, I believe.
yeah.
So, even though it's community dock exclusively owned by the members,
Right.
Yeah.
it's not a public dock like the kind that
Right.
Yep.
like marina. So that probably needs a little bit of tweaking as well.
Mhm.
You know, it's basically a group, private, 24 people, only 24 slips. There's 24 slips in here.
It'll be the same as the harbor, because they have a slip per unit there.
They bought that over, that last property, Bravo.
Yeah.
So they actually have more slips than units now.
That's-
The docks were all put in as part of the condo.
Right.
For us, ours were not. They were all built after, and you know why?
Mm-hmm.
Because who developed it, wanted your boats to go back to the beach.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
So that required a change in the master deed, change in zoning, did all that stuff. So it's, you know, whatever it is, we ought to be equal treatment.
Sure.
You know, let's all pay.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm not opposed to that. So, good luck.
Thank you, Bruce.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yep. I'll warm it up for you. We're going to 70s this week.
Yeah, good. Gracious.
interesting
Thing
revelation.
we did keep on rolling.
That was an interesting revelation.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me that different units should,
That was like the Hills Corps thing we had, remember, 2 assessments ago? Where he said, well, just boom, 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 and all of a sudden it's like, well, now we're gonna have to look at all 24 of
Yeah.
these.
Yeah,
Because obviously there's disparities.
but last time it was all the marinas. We had to go through all the different marinas.
But that was fun.
Oh, that was fun.
And Ken Knoll was on the board then.
Yeah.
And he's the one who brought it up.
Stillman brought his in.
Yeah.
That's what precipitated that.
Yep. Mm. That was fun.
this one would be interesting to talk about. I feel like the harbor and the one.
Sloop Point?
Sloop Point.
Radico?
Like, your view and where you are on the river is pretty darn similar across the whole thing, whereas at the green, I mean, it's a huge difference being out on the point.
Yeah.
So if you just give the same land value to everybody and give everybody the same price per square foot for their house, and that one out on the point, now that one, the person did that addition on it and stuff, so that would have more square footage, but, I imagine if you looked at sales, even though they're older, there's a huge difference in what things are selling for. So it just seems like he's got these categories that he's got it. So it really seemed to be more like a home site value than a land value. And it's just sort of labeled weirdly because of because typically he just goes in and uses the same.
Home site value.
That's what I thought was weird on here. There isn't a home site value. There's just a land value. But the fact that that didn't change from the last one, it's probably been done that way for several different assessments.
Right.
So how do you, I guess it says home site.
125?
It does say home site, actually. It's not
Yeah.
just given as land value. I didn't catch that at first. So it seems like that's trying to give some sort of a differentiation between, that'll be interesting. We'll go through and click on them all to see if they get higher as you get out towards the point and they're lower as you come in. With the harbor, it's easy because you own the land underneath of it. So yeah, the home sites, but I guess he said that all of those are, that's the
Same.
other thing that'll be.
The same too.
Yep.
But again, to me, all of those are relatively similar. There's not one where you've got a pretty expansive view and one where your view is almost blocked, right? Some of the ones down by the pool, maybe the view isn't as
Good.
good, but it's still relatively similar.
Yeah.
Decent view.
But what's interesting is if the ones that are attached are valued really differently on the improvements, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
What would they have been looking at that there? I mean, otherwise, they would all basically just be valued the same, with the only difference being the square footage, which doesn't make much sense either. But it's just really hard when there hasn't been a sale in there in so long to know. I could see where those things would sell for a lot more money than the assessed value is, but maybe they wouldn't because there's just not any other community just like it. It always ends up being a pretty unique buyer who wants to be in the green, but that'll be a fun one.
All right, so our next one's at 115. So do y'all want to try and knock out a couple of these? Say till 12:15, then take an hour for lunch?
Fine with me.
All right.
Go to the bathroom now.